What's going on? We're back. Just finally getting back into this whole YouTube thing a little bit. And I figured there's not really a better way to do it than just recording a little bit of voiceover to go with some of the rides that I went on over this last summer. Currently, this is obviously not today's footage because there's snow outside if you're watching it when I'm recording it and posting it. But this was actually from like June this year. It was a really fun ride actually. It's just up in like central Utah, up in the mountains. Beautiful country. And with buddies of mine, decided, hey, we're gonna go and take this ride, and it's gonna be a good time. We're just gonna explore a little bit. None of us have ever ridden this trail, but it should be pretty awesome. So that's what we decided to do. So the five of us that went on this trip are all on two strokes except for my dad. He's on a WR 450. It's an older one. It's 2009 model. So it's the last year that they had the carbureted bike. And that bike, he's taken that bike around. He bought it brand new in 2009 and just taken it pretty much everywhere. And have just kind of abused that thing. Not really abused it, but like he's taken it on enough trips that it's seen its money's worth of life, you could say. So there's that. The rest of us are all on two strokes. The guy that gave us the idea to go up here, he's the leader of this trip most of the way through. He's actually on a KTM 300 XCW, and he was loving that. And then my brother and his best friend are on 250 two strokes. My brother's on a Husqvarna, and his friend is on a gas 250. And then I'm just kind of taking up space on the KTM 125 XC. And I would just like to preface, this is the first time I've taken that bike on single track, was this ride. And it was phenomenal. It took a little bit of time to learn things out. You can tell throughout the video that like there's places where I'm still getting used to the bike. I think when I took it on this ride, it had like 4 hours on it. It's still brand new. Like before that, I took it out just one time in the evening behind my house. Went for a little quick ride, and then there was a trip out to the track where my brother and I went out with a couple of his other buddies, and we kind of dialed in some suspension a little bit. A lot of those guys have a lot more knowledge with that kind of thing than I do, so they kind of just filled me in, softened up the suspension a little bit, stiffened it up in other places. I don't really know what they did, but they were super helpful. And this thing rides like $1 million. I feel like it's pretty much perfect for where I'm at. It's a very comfortable ride. I still need to set the sag on it because I'm lazy and never got around to that. But other than that, like the suspension feels perfect. Biggest thing for me to get used to on this was the fact that it's a 125. I came off of riding a YZ 450, and yeah, I love that bike too. It just was not good for a lot of the riding that we tried to do. I would not have wanted to ride it on this trail. It's a lot of just steep climbs with blind turns and low visibility. So for me, the 450 really wasn't the right option. It would be able to handle the climbs very well, but it doesn't do slow speed as much. As you can imagine, it's a race bike. It's torqued out of its mind, but it doesn't know how to go slow. It's not geared for that. You can't really make it ride like that. It's just going to be a hassle. It'll be a wrestling match between you and a 450, and let me tell you, the 450 will win because I'm 5'7". I'm not exactly tall, and this thing will definitely make me regret taking it on that trip if I did. Especially where a lot of what we were riding was going to be to the point where if I killed the bike, I'd have to kickstart it on a hill, and I'm just not as good as I once was, I guess. I don't know. But no, this is such a good, beautiful trip, and I really learned a lot about riding a two-stroke and a 125 in general from this trip. Firstly, I'll just say it right now. The electric start does spoil you, and I'm okay with that. That is an awesome problem to have. But it is so nice to be able to just go and not have to think about kicking. That was one of the main things that made me want to get a KTM over a YZ125 or a YZ250, is the electric start. Another one was the fuel injection, which, by the way, ran perfectly up in the mountains. We were at like 8,500, 9,500 feet by the time this was all over, because it was mostly climbing. And I never, ever had an issue with it where it ran like it was underpowered or not going to be able to perform. Now, that being said, I did also learn that clutch control is key, especially on the 125, because it's geared so short. You're shifting a lot on the 125. You definitely have to be able to use the clutch. If you don't, you're going to hate your life. But that's also exactly why I wanted to buy it. I needed something that I felt like could teach me to be a better rider, and everything that I've ever done research-wise for buying a motorcycle pointed towards the 125. And that was because the 125 rewards you more for riding it right, and it punishes you more for riding it wrong. So, you learn really, really quickly to treat the 125 with love and respect and care. And that's what I've been trying to do. This ride is very much a learning experience for me. Especially, here's something I learned too. There's two maps on the 125 and the 250 and the 300. Pretty much all of the off-road models and the race bikes have two maps. But on the off-road models, like my XC and my friend's XCW that was leading this trip, the two maps are sand and hardpack. That's what they call them, right? So if you're riding a softer, need to be higher revving kind of area, you use the sand map. If you're riding more like this, you should be in the hardpack map. And I'm not sure exactly what they change in there, but I notice in the sand map, it doesn't like to go slow as much. It's a little bit more, you need to rev it high, and it doesn't like to idle or lug in the slow stuff. When you go to the hardpack map, it chugs a lot more. And this is a 125, so it's not like it's got a lot of anything in general compared to a 250 or a 300. The 300 will lug all day long, and you won't even have a problem with it. My friend was absolutely enjoying the crap out of his. He says, dude, I could put it in friggin' first gear and let it idle its way up a hill. Like, it's awesome. And that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. I don't know. I didn't ride it. But that's what he's saying, and that's what I'm going to tell you. The 125, not quite that much lug. But it makes it so that as you practice clutch control, you really notice it a lot more. And that becomes very evident throughout this ride day. Throughout the beginning of this ride, you'll notice, like, I'm killing the bike a lot more. I'm starting and stopping it. I'm just having kind of a rough time. And by the end of the day, I'm living like $1 million. Life is good. I'm still learning a lot with it, but it's okay. But yeah, that was one thing that made a huge difference to me in riding compared to the 450. Was this isn't gonna kill me if I make a mistake. It's gonna teach me, right? Another thing that I really, really love about this bike, and that I learned a lot about on this ride, was the brakes. The Brembo brakes, phenomenal. All right. Compared to my 450, I had no problem with my 450 brakes. And I think they did have a big brake kit on the 450, which kind of helped. But still, like, those brakes would stop you on a dime. They were really good brakes. Never had a problem with them. These Brembo brakes, 10 times better. 10 times. And I don't say that as an exaggeration. I honestly, truly believe it. And that might have something to do with the fact that the bike weighs 40 pounds less, because it's a 125 two-stroke instead of a 450 four-stroke. It might have something to do with the fact that, you know, this is a very, very high-quality brake. It might have something to do with the fact that I was on a hill and I definitely had to practice it a lot. I think it's a bit of all of the above, personally. But, whatever the case is, these brakes work, and they work, and they work, and they work, and they keep working, to the point where I almost endoed my brains out going down a hill because I tapped the brakes a millimeter further than I needed to. So it's definitely something you have to get used to, coming off of a Japanese bike with slightly less good brakes. I am not mad at all. I think that they are phenomenal, and they're just life-changing brakes, really. Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky. 2 strokes compared to 4 strokes will foul plugs. They will. And that's the sad ending to this ride day. Was 200 yards from the end of this trail. We're riding along. We'd been going downhill a lot. Just the bike had been idling, and just not really being used a whole lot. Which, in hindsight, looking back, I probably should have gone down this hill and just turned the bike off and coasted and used the brakes. I didn't do that, and I paid for it. Literally 200 yards from the end of the trail, I fouled the spark plug and ended up pushing my bike to the finish line. Made it through the trail, rode the whole thing, minus those 200 yards, and most of that was still even downhill. There's just a flat section that I had to get a run for. So I'm going to count it as I finished the trail, rode it all out. But then, I was really disappointed. This bike had like 10 hours on it. Maybe. I don't know. It was this very low hour bike. Fouled the plug. But I was more disappointed in myself because I knew that this was a genuine possibility. I wasn't like surprised by the fact that it fouled a plug. I knew that was going to happen eventually if I didn't do things properly. But I left my spark plug in my truck on the other side of the mountain. So I had to send my dad and my buddies to go and pick up my truck and meet me over at the other end of the trail so that they could load up my bike and I could switch out the spark plug and get it to go back on the ride. Not very cash money, in my opinion. However, I learned something from it, and I'm okay learning. Alright? And what I learned, looking through, doing some research on the internet, is when you're in the hard pack map, and it's running a little more slow and lean and rich and everything, the bike is legitimately richening your fuel just a little bit more with the air. It's giving it a more rich mixture, and so you're more likely to foul a plug if you're riding that slow. You have to make sure that you're aware of that. I was not aware of that, and I paid for it. However, that's something that, as someone who would be shopping for a 2-stroke, that's something that you should be aware of when you buy the bike. Alright? So, that was my only gripe with this ride today. Other than that, it was perfectly amazing. Alright? As you can tell, also, watching through this, I definitely struggle a little bit. I am not a perfectly good enduro rider. I definitely need to practice a lot of things. My log hopping skills, atrocious, as you can tell because I got high centered on a log. Clutch control definitely is better now than it was when I went on this ride. And throttle control, definitely a big deal on a 125. But that's okay, that's why I bought it. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about this ride. I'm going to be dropping a full review of the 125 right before the end of the year. I'm really excited with it. It's perfect for me. I have zero regrets, and I can't wait for 2025 so that I can go on more rides, take it out in the desert some more, really show what this thing's capable of. But until then, I'll thank you guys just so much for watching to the end of this and enjoying the content that I'm putting out. I'm definitely trying way harder now than I used to be to put out good content, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you did, click the subscribe button if you're interested. Watch some more of my footage. There's a little bit out there. Some of it is cheesier and worse than others, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. Y'all have a great day, and good night.